There must be some way to stop it.
Yes, but not without the help of our large friends. Herculoids!
Man, it must have been a treat being a child in the 60s. You would wake up Saturday morning to be treated to the best cartoons ever made. A cartoon that dominated this decade was the Herculoids. 22 minutes of pure action where Zandor, his wife Terra, his son Sorno, Zok the laser dragon, Igoo the rock ape, Glop and Gleep the protoplasmic blobs, and Tundro the rhinoceros would defend their planet Amzot against invaders that ranged from mad scientists to warring robots. It didn't make a lot of sense, but you didn't mind it either. It was pretty disappointing that the Herculoids ended up on the chopping block because parents were worried their kids were watching too much violence. The show tried to make a comeback in the 80s, but it didn't carry the same oomph as it did before, and was largely sanded down. It was pretty clear that it was aimed at pleasing parents rather than kids. If you are one of the many who were left disappointed by this radical change, I have some good news for you. The Herculoids are back as a comic book series with enough violence that would make the 60s parents clutch their pearls in horror, and with a story that sheds a lot of light onto the history of Amzot that the show did not bother to explore. Let's dive right in. There are monsters in paradise. The way an invader's mind works is crazy. He looks out into the beautiful void of space and wonders what bounties it is hiding. He doesn't care what the universe wants and will seek out and hunt down said bounties, taking them by force if necessary. We see one such invader, Quentel, leading a large ship across the vast void of space. He had heard about a bountiful planet known by many names: Quasar, Pentagorian, Shorinza, Amzot. All the names meant the same: paradise. On the distant planet of Barbera 11, Quentel had sought out a man rumored to have visited this planet. The man looked like he had been through some stuff, and he knew exactly why Quentel had approached him. A navigational error had taken the man and his exploratory mission through a black hole and into Amzot. It was everything he had heard about in the legends and more. The people in his mission could not believe their luck and began collecting data, but their happiness was short-lived as they were soon attacked by the monsters of the planet. The old man had been allowed to live as a warning to anybody who dared to seek Amzot. Quentel perks up hearing about it and asks him if he knows the way there, as he had managed to travel back. The old man says yes, he knows exactly how to get to Amzot, but that secret will die with him. Quentel doesn't have time for the old man's stubbornness and shoves a device into his skull that absorbs his memories. He collects the old man's memories and tells his corpse that if he had not been so stubborn, Quentel's sponsors would have made him a rich man. As Quentel reaches Amzot, his security expresses their disbelief that the legends of Amzot are true. Quentel assures them that Amzot is real as the monsters that protect it. The security guys still don't think that Amzot is anything more than a bedtime story, but promise to carry out their duty and protect Quentel. As they prepare to land, Zandor notices their arrival and picks up the horn to alert the Herculoids. Dorno, who has been climbing a tree to get his hands on some eggs, gets startled by the horn and falls off but is caught by Gleep. They all rush to answer the call of Zandor. Quentel and his fleet of no-good ships begin razing down the planet by spraying fire down on the thick forests of Amzot. The animals there are burnt alive, and Igoo realizes the depth of the situation when he sees the charred body of a monkey. After a forest is completely cleared, Quentel and his crew descend and begin setting up base camp. They won't be able to get started though, as Igoo has arrived on scene. He throws a boulder at one of the ships and dents it, while Terra and Dorno throw rocks at them. Tundro rushes at them and takes them down like they are bowling pins. Terrified, Quentel calls his security team, but let's just say they are a bit caught up with Glop and Gleep, literally. Zandor arrives riding Zok and asks Zok to show the invaders why they should have never come. Zok shoots lasers out of her eyes and her tail, destroying the ships in an instant. Quentel tries to find his fellow crew members in the rising dust and smoke, but all he sees are the menacing silhouettes of the protectors of Amzot. No land for invaders. Quentel had gone to great lengths to get sponsors for his Amzot expedition. A panel of sponsors had only heard him out as his reputation preceded him and had met his demands for an experienced exploratory and extracting team, the largest refinery ship, and a security team. They had only decided to take the risk as the man making them the promise of a good return was Quentel. Now, on Amzot, Quentel was not so sure. Zandor introduces himself and his friends as the Herculoids and orders Quentel to leave. Quentel, however, has come prepared and he contacts his ship, still flying in the orbit of Amzot, to initiate security protocols. Zandor, unaware of the threat, continues his warning and asks Quentel to leave after gathering the dead and wounded. Immediately, hundreds of robots descend onto the planet and begin shooting lasers at the Herculoids. Caught off guard, the Herculoids are thrown into disarray, and Quentel grabs Dorno. He holds him at gunpoint and threatens to shoot him if the Herculoids don't leave immediately. Not a very honorable thing, holding a child as a human shield, but we are talking about a guy who burnt animals alive just so he could get a landing spot. The Herculoids are forced to obey and they retreat hastily. He hands the kid to one of the robots and orders it to take him to the command center. In a cave, the Herculoids plot to rescue Dorno. Zandor wants to immediately rush to his boy's rescue, but Terra asks him to wait as their son is growing up and knows all about the mission and the dangers that come with it. She wants to wait to see what he can do. He is still barely a teenager, so I don't know if I am with Terra on this one. Dorno wakes up in the command center with his hands cuffed behind him and a large electric collar that would explode with just the click of a button. Dorno tells Quentel, who has been looking over the work and sipping a cup of whatever hot beverage his people drink, that he should have left when Zandor gave him the chance. Quentel, however, is looking at the bigger picture. He doesn't want to disappoint his investors. He also knows that Amzot's resources could satisfy a starving galaxy for years to come. Nearby, Zandor and his friends see Quentel's ship send long mechanical limbs down to their planet to extract their resources. Zandor worries about the advancements when Terra notices that Gleep is missing. Gleep, my favorite of the Herculoids, is right behind Dorno. As Dorno speaks to Quentel about how invaders always take what does not belong to them, Gleep removes his handcuffs. Quentel thinks that Dorno does not understand the simple law of the universe. The strong always take from the weak, and though it is probably hard to live on Amzot, the Herculoids were weak compared to the galactic corporations of the universe. By this time, Gleep had removed Dorno's collar as well, and Dorno punches Quentel, but not before letting him know that the Herculoids eat galactic corporations for breakfast. Dorno gets on Gleep while Quentel searches for the remote of his collar. Just as he presses the button, Dorno flings the collar towards his ship and it explodes, shocking the poor raider. The robots begin firing lasers at him as Gleep carries him out, and Quentel asks them to make sure to only wound him, as Dorno is still pretty useful as a hostage. Zandor, who had watched everything transpire through his binoculars, leads the Herculoids to attack Quentel and his settlement. Igoo has a grand old time, jumping on the robots and swinging them like they are ragdolls, while Tundro wrecks everything. Desperate to save his life, Quentel orders everyone to return to the orbit, planning to escape with what he has and returning with an army to take the rest. Quentel runs as fast as his feet can carry him, but trips and falls on Xing, his chief of security. Unlike Quentel, Xing has learnt his lesson, and he tries to tell him that they should have never taken something that does not belong to them. A shadow looms over Quentel, and he looks up to see Zoc burning away at his ship. Quentel gets into the ship, closes the door, and heads to the orbit. Quentel was given a chance, though, and he had chosen to stay back. Now, there is no way the Herculoids would let him safely get away. Zandor flies with Zoc till the edge of the planet's atmosphere and drops back down using Gleep as a parachute. Zoc continues on as she can survive in space and takes the ship down. Dorno sees through the binoculars that some people escaped in pods, and Zandor tells him it's for the best as they can tell the entire galaxy that Amzot is not kind to invaders. Quentel's escape pod drifts across the void, and Quentel, unable to find his way back home, grows old and insane in his pod. As for our heroes, they go to sleep that night, hoping to wake up the next day with hope and promise. But there is no guarantee that the day would hold peace and tranquility, as in a distant cave, lights turn on and a robotic voice announces that it has awakened. Under the control. Beneath the planet of Amzot, the mole people drill across the underground and find a cavity that none of their exploratory teams had previously found. When Quintel's starship had fallen back to Amzot after Zock's attack, it had devastated the empire of the mole people, but finding this underground chamber meant that they could rebuild the empire in a new, safer location. That location, however, has a mechanical structure, a ship of some kind. The leader of the exploration team sets his hand on it and it whirs to life, emitting a green light. The eyes of everybody in the team turns green too. Near the home of the Herculoids, Terra notices her son's melancholy while harvesting their crops and asks him why he isn't excited that their crops have done well this year. Dorno wanted to go with Zandor rather than work with Terra. Terra tries to tell him that Zandor and Zock took a quick trip to the Lemurian settlement to offer their bounty for trade, and besides, Dorno's needed there to finish harvesting quickly. That doesn't make the sulky teenager any less sad, as he'd rather be with Zock and Zandor. Zandor and Zock's quick trip is about to be a lot longer, as they notice that the Lemurian settlement is empty. There is destruction everywhere, and Zandor finally finds some Lemurians on a windmill whispering desperate pleas for help. One of the Lemurians asks Zandor to watch out as there are intruders in the dirt. As if on cue, green hands pop up from the ground. Not that far away, Igoo teases his sleeping friend Tundro by throwing a rock at him. Tundro isn't happy about that and charges at Igoo when the ground beneath his feet crumbles. The mole people grab a hold of Tundro and pull Igoo down with them too. The green hands that Zandor sees in the Lemurian settlement are the gloved hands of the mole people, who attack him with reckless abandon. While fighting them, Zandor notices that they are uncharacteristically silent and bestial. He asks Zock to fight them but not harm them till he figures out what's going on. The Lemurians are in greater danger though, as the mole people start dismantling the windmill. Zock and Zandor fly over to them with a cart and ask the Lemurians to jump in just as the windmill crashes down. They get the Lemurians to safety. Meanwhile, Terra, Dorno, Gleep, and Gloop are also attacked by the mole people, and while fending them off, Terra asks Dorno to get Igoo and Tundro. Dorno, tired of being treated like a child, decides to do more than that and retrieves a gun from his secret stash of weapons he had been salvaging from raiders. He jumps into action when he hears distressed cries from Igoo. He zaps away the mole people with his gun, and with Igoo and Tundro, returns to help his mother. Zandor asks a mole person who has been watching the others from a distance whether he's the one who ordered them to do what they are doing. Zandor's question is indirectly answered as the possessed mole people attack him. Zock and Zandor fly him to safety, and he tells them that he is the mole commander. He has no definitive answer as to what got them behaving that way, but he knows that it all started with the exploratory team and whatever they discovered in the hidden chamber. What they had discovered was a starship of the Ancient, which had tapped into the consciousness of the mole people to spread the wisdom of the Ancient. The starship determines that the mole people are not worthy of the wisdom and stops its control of them. The mole people's eyes, which have been growing with a sinister green light, return to normal. Zandor and Zock return to Terra, and the rest with the mole commander. He asks his people to find out what happened, and they return below the ground while Zandor tells the Herculoids that they must be prepared for whenever this threat shows itself. The journey of a child. The next day in Amzot is an exciting day for a young Dorgite who wakes up on the verge of transformation. As per Dorgite customs, he leaves his home with his weapons, promising his parents that he will not return until the trial is complete. He has to now leave everyone he knows, choose a great beast of the wilderness, and kill it to complete his journey to adulthood. Meanwhile, Zandor tries to set out with Zock to inspect the crash site of the raiders' mining ship. As soon as he sets his hand on Zock, though, she hisses at him. Dorno and Zandor wonder what's got Zock so bothered, but she flies away without giving an answer. The Dorgite youngster watches the majestic flight of the dragon and chooses her to slay. Zock flies to a cave on a mountain, dark and secluded. As soon as she enters the cave, a large beaver-like creature with a horn on its head attacks her. In the vicious fight that follows, she defeats the beast and takes a bite out of it. She places the corpse outside the cave's entrance as a warning, and inside, she builds a nest from the stones, branches, grass, and bones left in the cave that probably belonged to the dead beast's mate. She lays down on the nest and sleeps, waiting for the right time to lay her egg. As she sleeps blissfully, the door guide enters the cave and aims his crossbow at her. Right behind him, a giant beaver creature lunges and attacks. He rams his arrow into the creature's throat, but that only angers the beast. Zoc awakens at the kerfuffle and shoots her laser beams at the creature, incinerating it completely. She looks at the door guide and decides he isn't much of a threat, and using her laser sight, creates a circle of fire around her. In the circle of fire, she lays her egg. The Dorgite reaches out to touch the egg, but Zoc hisses at him. He puts his hand forward again and says please. This softens Doc's heart, and she lets him touch the egg before she grabs it in her hands and flies away. The Dorgite is transformed from the trial. Not in a way he had hoped, but arguably in a more profound way. He returns home with the horn of the beast that Zoc burnt away, and claims that he slayed the beast. Zoc flies away from the planet and finds another glowing one. She uses her lasers to heat the egg, and it sheds its outer shell to show her baby, still encased in a transparent protective layer. She sends away her child and returns home. Zandor asks her if she's okay. He realizes that whatever it was, she has taken care of it and is back to normal now. That night, as everyone sleeps, Zoc looks out into the open sky and with her keen sight, sees that her baby is safe and sound. A crucial mission. In the deep bowels of Amzot, a starship remains buried. It had been sent years ago, carrying the Encephalon, a giant-headed blue creature that is the physical manifestation of the vast knowledge of the Galactic Empire known as the Ancients. The Ancients had been threatened with extinction, and to survive it, they had collected all known knowledge in a ship and sent it to their birth world, Amzot. The ship had suffered a lot of damage before landing in Amzot, and as soon as it did, the Encephalon had slept to heal and mend itself. Now that it's awake, it sends a mechanical bird to scope out the planet and continue its crucial mission. The bird flies over the only 3 survivors of Quentel's mission. One of them is sure they are going to die on Amzot, while another one tells him that they only need to wait till a rescue mission arrives. One of the trio spots the mechanical bird, and confusing it with a real bird, shoots it down to eat it. Zandor wakes up to find that Dorno had left for his chores, and he begins listing out his own to-do list. Patrol the crash site for survivors, sharpen his shield edges, replace his slingshot cords, but Terra interrupts him. She wants him to take a break as he has been running himself ragged. Zandor considers her words while Dorno complains about his tedious chore. He isn't happy that it is his job to collect Tundro's explosive poop and dispose of it safely. As he grumbles his way through the chore, Zandor asks him to stop as he's had enough chores for the day, and asks him how he would like to spend the rest of his day at the falls. Dorno cheers at that and runs to join his parents. The Encephalon receives information about the destroyed bird and sends a humanoid metallic harvester that is much more durable than the bird to collect biological data. Meanwhile, the 3 survivors see the monsters that destroyed their ship having a fun day at the waterfall and decide to take their revenge, even if it is the last thing they do. They are interrupted by the harvester and they begin shooting at the weird creature. The harvester absorbs the properties of the weapon aimed at it and incorporates it into itself. It absorbs the different characteristics of the 3 survivors too, before killing them all. The noise of the conflict attracts the Herculoids, and they desert their fun day to find out what is happening. Tundro shoots explosive pellets from his horn at the harvester, which now looks like a combination of the 3 survivors. When the harvester seems undeterred, Tundro rushes at it and the robot analyzes its genes to copy them too. When Igoo attacks, it shoots explosive pellets just like Tundro from its fingertips. Realizing its modus operandi, Zoc lasers a large pit in its path and it tips over. Unfortunately, Gleep gets a bit too curious and ventures right into the creature's hands. Now with Gleep's shape-shifting abilities, the creature stretches its hands and grabs onto Zoc. It turns the laser dragon upside down and Zandor falls hard onto the land. Getting tired of the harvester's antics, Dorno rushes at it with his knife and shoves it, but the knife breaks. The harvester grabs Dorno's head and begins genetic analysis. Though Zandor and Terra rush to save their son, they are pushed away by the creature's acquired laser eyes. The harvester sends the info to the Encephalon, who decides that Dorno is the right designate. Having completed its mission, the harvester flies away with wings it copied from Zoc. The Encephalon is satisfied that he found the designate and sends a signal across galaxies to the Ancient that their time of darkness is about to end. The next day, Dorno wakes to find Igoo gone. He searches for him far and wide and is shocked to find a piece of his rock-hard skin on the ground. In a panic, he calls Zandor and Terra and tells them something terrible must have happened to Igoo. Zandor calls him down, explaining that Igoo is just molting, shedding his old skin so that a new, stronger one would grow. He assures his son that Igoo would be okay, and they needed to let nature take its course. Igoo, meanwhile, wanders around Amzot, scratching away the dead remnants of his skin. During molting, Igoo is always super vulnerable. He is attacked by a pack of wild boars who have 4 eyes and 3 horns. With whatever remains of his skin, Igoo fights and kills one of them. He holds the dead boar aloft and the rest of them leave. By the end of the battle, Igoo is left completely naked and without any protection. It begins to rain, and in his rush to find shelter, Igoo trips and falls into a small pond. Unconscious, he dreams of a life long forgotten, of being on a different planet where he was venerated, and of being pulled up by a spaceship. When he wakes up, the memories fade and his hunger pushes him forward. His eyes fall on a tree with purple fruits growing in a bunch, and he hungrily climbs the tree to get his hands on them. Despite not having his hard skin, Igoo is still pretty heavy and the branch breaks under his weight. As he crashes down onto the mud below, giant worms that look like centipedes attack him. He might be hungry, but Igoo is still strong, and he kills them all in a rampage. Moments later, he eats the worms he killed and gazes upon the mountains, where giant bats kidnap 6-legged goats for food. Using the outer layer of the worms as a makeshift armor, Igoo climbs up the mountain. He too is attacked by the giant bats, but our guy Igoo is a great improviser. He grabs the ears of the bat and rides him to a cave atop the mountain. Medicinal fumes invite him deeper into the cave, and he walks on, knowing his new skin is also seconds away. In his happiness, he doesn't know indigo-colored rodents climbing all over him to eat the bug armor. He knows it is only a matter of time that they finish the armor and start feeding on his flesh. So he runs deeper into the cave and jumps into the volcanic pool that was emitting the fumes. The chemical composition of the pool not only kills the rodents, but speeds up the growth of his new skin. Just because he is underwater doesn't mean Igoo is safe, as an octopus wraps its tentacles around the ape. It's too late for the octopus though, as Igoo has his new skin now, and he throws the squid away like it's an irritating piece of seaweed. He bonks it on the head a few times with a makeshift club, and leaves it for dead. Back home, Dorno waits for Igoo. Zandor and Terra try to get him inside where it's warmer, but Dorno wants to wait just a bit longer to welcome his friend. His parents worry but allow him to wait. As the night grows dark, Dorno covers himself with a blanket and patiently sits around a fire with Glop and Gleep. He doesn't have to wait for long though, as Igoo is back. Dorno greets him with a hug and questions him about his new skin. The Chosen One. The Encephalon had received a message back from the ancients that they would be arriving soon, so he begins making preparations to uncover his ship, assess its damages, and fix it. As the Encephalon had arrived years ago, the ship was buried underneath megatons of rock and dirt that could only be removed by the destroyer ants. The Encephalon sends out its signal, and the ants hatch early to obey his command. Zandor teaches his son Dorno the art of fighting, and the most important thing all warriors need to have: patience. Without patience, any fighter would get sloppy, a lesson that flies right over Dorno's head as he wants to learn how to fight as quickly as possible. Their sparring session is interrupted by Zok, who is terrified after seeing the destroyer ants. Zandor is confused though, as there was still time for the destroyer ants to hatch, and wonders what caused this sudden change. If only you knew, Zandor. The destroyer ants work diligently to unearth the starship buried in the Whispering Hills, and it causes a landslide that would destroy the Hakori village at the base of the hills. The villagers interpret the ants and the landslide as the anger of their gods and accept their fate without any fight. There is still much hope for the villagers though, as the Herculoids arrive. Zok and Tundro begin taking out the ants while the rest get the villagers to safety. Zok takes Zandor to the part of the mountain where the ship is uncovered, and Zandor watches in awe and shock as memories he had forgotten long ago flash across his mind. He has no time to dwell on them though, as the ants are now attacking his friends and family. The Encephalon commands one of the ants to bring him Dorno, his designate prime who cannot be harmed. He thinks Dorno has the perfect brain, young and malleable, to receive the knowledge of the ancients. The ant obeys and carries him into the spaceship. Before any of the other Herculoids could enter, the ship closes the door. Inside, Dorno is placed in front of the Encephalon, who asks him to prepare to receive his legacy. The Herculoids try opening the door individually, and when that doesn't work, they aim all of their powers at the door at once. The door opens and they enter the starship. They are greeted by circular drones who attack them, but the drones don't stand a chance against the Herculoids. They follow the ants' mud tracks to where Dorno is, and throughout the way, Zandor and Terra are plagued by a weird sense of deja vu. Their steps quicken when they hear Dorno's scream. As they enter the room, they see Dorno connected to wires while the Encephalon floats in his stasis pod, no longer awake. Dorno's eyes have lost their irises, and he tells Zandor and Terra that their son has been replaced by the Overmind, the voice of the ancients, and the one who ruled the galaxy. The history of the ancients. Dorno, or rather the Overmind, tells the Herculoids the history of the ancients. Long ago, when the universe was still young, the Claturrians, who would later become the ancients, ruled Amzot. In the language of the Claturrians, Amzot meant the place of beginnings. Under the Claturrians, civilization grew in Amzot at a terrifying pace, and soon they brought the planet to the brink of ecological collapse by overusing its resources. Emperor Val Jack realized Amzot would die soon and commanded his people to take to the stars. They left Amzot, a polluted planet they believed would die, and branched across the galaxy. They conquered any and all planets they found, destroying civilizations and entire species if they dared to refuse the Claturrians' supremacy. Despite thriving as an empire, the Claturrians' lust for power knew no bounds, and they searched for newer planets and galaxies to conquer. On one such journey, the Claturrians entered uncharted space where there was nothing. They didn't let that stop them and continued on deeper into the void till they found a blue planet. The exploratory team got on the planet and searched far and wide for resources and wondered if it would be another feather in the cap of the Claturrian Empire. It was completely empty though, and before they could leave, an obelisk erupted out of the ground and towered over them all. The leader of the exploratory team was overcome with a similar curiosity. He touched the obelisk and with a scream, the obelisk released ghosts. The leader aborted the mission immediately and left for his planet with the survivors, but not before dropping their strongest explosives onto the planet to make sure the world was never threatened by the wraith-like creatures. The race were not harmed though, only angered. The Wraiths followed the exploratory team back to their home and took over everything. They came to be known as the Shyan, and they attacked every planet under the rule of the Claturrians. They killed every creature until only the Shyan remained. In the throne world of Claturrians, the Emperor realized that his empire was in danger of being overtaken by the Shyan and decided to collect samples of the finest genetic materials to send it to their home planet where they could restart. The Encephalon was given all the knowledge of the ancients and the responsibility of piloting the ship that carried the genetic sample. But for life to begin again at Amzot, it had to be protected. So they chose creatures of superior strength and intelligence from the Herculoids sector of the Empire. They were the Herculoids, sent to be the protectors of Amzot. When the Shyan descended onto the throne world, the king knew his planet would die, but he also knew that there would be a new beginning for the Claturrians. The journey for the ship was long and hard, and when it finally reached Amzot, it was left worse for wear. For thousands of years, the ship tried to repair itself while Encephalon slept, recovering from the arduous journey. Meanwhile, the seeds of the ancients had taken root in the planet, as Zandor and Terra and new life had begun. The designate, Dorno, had been born, and when the Encephalon awoke, he sent the message to the universe, hoping that whatever ancients remained would answer. A Claturrian spaceship had received the signal and promised to return to their home planet to receive the knowledge of the galaxy's greatest empire. Though Zandor cannot believe the words of the Overmind, he knows it to be true instinctually. Despite that, he demands the Overmind to return their son to him. The Overmind refuses to do so and tells him that the only reason Dorno exists is to be the receptacle for the Overmind. The robots in the ship attack the Herculoids while the Overmind floats upwards towards the arriving Claturrian ship. The Claturrians come outside the ship to welcome the knowledge, and when they remove their helmets, we see that they are not Claturrians, but the Shyan. They are determined to seize Claturrian knowledge at all costs and attack the Herculoids preemptively. They leave with Dorno, and on Amzot, the Herculoids mourn the loss of a beloved member. Getting him back. The Herculoids are left with a paralyzing helplessness. They are deeply dejected but don't know what to do or how to get Dorno back. Sensing Terra's sadness, Glop and Gleep try to cheer her up by making a Dorno replica with their protoplasm, but Terra tells them that she would never replace her son. Glop and Gleep absorb the creature back and hug Terra. Zandor takes his leave from Terra, telling her that he cannot do nothing while his son is lost somewhere. He promises to return once he finds a way to get Dorno back. Dorno, meanwhile, is aboard the Shyan spaceship resisting the Overmind. The Shyan try to convince him to embrace the inevitable, but Dorno remains strong. He argues against the Overmind inside him, telling him that he would never allow anybody to take away who he is. Zandor's search leads him to the Encephalon, and the robots attack him again. The scuffle wakes up the Encephalon, and Zandor introduces himself as the child of the Claturians. The Encephalon verifies his claim and lets him speak. Zandor tells him that he is the answer to the problem of the Claturians, and that if the Encephalon helped him get his son back, he would defeat the Shyan, who demolished the empire of the ancients. The Shyan commune at the cluster, a meeting of spaceships in the middle of space. The Shyan commander is disappointed to hear that the Overmind hasn't taken root in Dorno yet, but he is a patient guy. Their mission is to bring the universe to an end, and they don't mind waiting for the weak Claturian psyche of Dorno to break. Terra continues on with her daily life as her chores distract her from the excruciating sadness of losing her son. Suddenly, she hears the all-too-familiar sound of Zandor's horn. He returns in a smaller spaceship, and he tells Terra that he has claimed his heritage, and they now have a way to get their son back. Terra is not too hopeful, though, as they don't know where Dorno is, and the galaxy is infinitely vast. Zandor asks Zok, who can smell Dorno's scent across galaxy, and asks her to lead them. Meanwhile, Dorno continues to fight against the Overmind. The Overmind pushes him to accept his purpose, so that the Empire of the Ancients might live again. But Dorno tries to tell him that his captors are not the Claturians, but the Shyan. The Herculoids get on the ship with Zandor piloting it, as the Encephalon had reached inside his mind and given him the knowledge necessary for his mission. Zok leads them out, and the Herculoids set out to get Dorno back. The Protectors of Amzot. Though the Shyan claim to be patient, their patience soon runs out, and the Commander Shaitan orders a surgical procedure to clip out the part of Dorno's brain that is putting up the resistance. A lobotomy of sorts. He orders the surgical team to take great care, as the Claturian physiology is very delicate, and they can't lose the one thing that would surely benefit the Shaitan cause. Inside Dorno, a fierce battle of the wills takes place. The Overmind notices his struggle getting weaker and weaker, but Dorno refuses to give in. He tells the Overmind that he is blinded by his purpose, and his enemy intends to use his purpose to kill them all. Loud sounds emanate across the Shyan ship, and one of the superiors receives news that an unauthorized craft is approaching them. The superior asks the Shyan soldiers to destroy it if it is not a Shyan ship. Before the Shyan could do anything, Zok takes out the security with her laser beam, and the Herculoids enter the main ship. Zandor asks Zok to lead them to Dorno. As the surgical procedure is about to begin, Dorno tells the Overmind that this will be the beginning of the end, as the Shyan, the same race that brought an end to the Claturians, will possess the knowledge of the Claturians. When the commander learns that the designate's protectors are on board, he asks his soldiers to protect the procedure at all costs, and heads out to face them with his sword. The soldiers empty their ammunition onto the Herculoids, but Zok and her laser vision are much stronger. Unfortunately, Zok's wing is shot and she tumbles to the ground. Terra attends to Zok while Tundro raises up the strong plates around his neck like a shield. When Zok is ready to fight again, they all seek cover behind Tundro and attack the soldier. The Herculoids completely wreck the bodies of the Shyan, but that does not stop them. Their wraith forms rise out of the bodies and attack them. They try to possess the Herculoids but are unable to. The Shyan commander is fascinated by it and lets them know that his scientists will study their corpses soon to find out why the Shyan could not possess them. Zandor demands his son back, but the commander tells them that their son is no more and his place has been taken by the Overmind. He asks them to go to their deaths knowing that they have served the mission of the Shyan. Igoo attacks the commander, but his blade cuts through Igoo's rock-hard skin and draws blood. Tundro shoots his explosive pellets at the villain, but he blocks it with his sword. Sensing that their individual efforts are useless, all of them attack him at once, but the commander stays strong, promising to bring the peace of darkness to the universe once again. Suddenly, the wall behind them bursts open and Dorno floats out. He tells them that they shouldn't be worried about his safety as he is fine. He tells the Shaitan that he and the Overmind have decided not to help the Shaitan and that they will do anything they can to get rid of them from the galaxy. The commander begins a rant about the glory of the Shaitans, but Igoo has had enough of it and pummels him to the ground. Zandor and Terra hug Dorno and he tells them that he has accepted the Overmind without compromising himself. He is now a part of the Overmind, as the Overmind is a part of him. The Shaitan commander lets out a loud laugh and tells them that they are foolish to think that they have won and are too ignorant to realize that the universe is already dead. As the commander disappears, the Shaitan ship begins a countdown for self-destruction, and the Herculoids book it out of there into their own ship. As the ship explodes, our heroes return to Amzot. That night, they all sleep peacefully despite the words of the Shaitan haunting them. In his dreams, Dorno sees the obelisk of the Shaitan explode, and from the mist, evil counterparts of the Herculoids crawl out. But only time will tell if his dream is a mere nightmare or a prophecy. The Herculoids are back, baby! The best part of the comic books was undoubtedly the art. I loved that the art maintained the simplicity of the cartoons. It was like getting a warm hug from an old friend. The story was pretty gripping too, and I appreciated the small interludes in between about Zok getting birth and Igoo's molting. Had a real filler episode vibe to it that is lost in modern media. One tiny gripe I have, though, is that the Ancients became the Clauturians midway, and nobody referred to them as the Ancients again, not even the Encephalon. Other than that, this comic book series was a home run. It sets up the next series perfectly, too. What did y'all think about the Herculoids comic book? Yay or nay? Let me know in the comments below, and you know what to do if you liked the video. Tap that thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with everybody you know. Alright now, I am going to take your leave, but I will be back with more awesome stuff. Until then, goodbye!